When Obama signed the agreement, he said $1.7 billion and Trump made a huge fuss out of it. Then $24 billion they will get access to. And the Iranians on the other side, their most important pledge, promise, commitment is that they will never make a nuclear bomb. And after this war, after the assassination of Khamenei, and I will be surprised if the Iranians make any major concessions on these two sticking points in the final agreement. So now, the threat of war is a spent force. From an Iranian perspective, they have seen the worst and they survived it. Why should they now make concessions to the Americans? And now, the United States wants the Iranians to reopen the Strait of Hormuz as part of an agreement. This is what they want. What the Iranians did when the United States imposed the blockade, what the Iranians did, they told the Americans that we will first negotiate an end to bringing the war to an end and removing the bottlenecks, which means reopening the Strait of Hormuz, removing the American naval blockade, and then get a ceasefire on Lebanon, and only then we will talk about the nuclear program. This is the position the Iranians have taken. And there was an MOU, right? An MOU was signed on June 17. It was announced on June 15, signed on June 17. And if you read the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, Trump had made all kind of wild, sweeping claims on his Truth Social post. He said that he had destroyed Iran's navy, he had destroyed Iran's air force, he had destroyed Iran's attack capabilities. They are finished. The Iran was deleted. This is what he said in one of his posts. It's great entertainment to read him in the evenings, especially. But if you read the text, read the fine text of the MOU, it's interesting. Even I was surprised. When I was trying to follow the war very closely, and I knew that the Iranians were not going to make any major concessions, but even I was surprised because the Americans have made a lot of concessions in the text. There is going to be a $300 billion development fund for Iran's reconstruction. And the MOU which President Trump had signed says that the United States would help set up that fund. Iran would get access to some $24 billion of unfrozen funds. When Obama signed the agreement, he said $1.7 billion and Trump made a huge fuss out of it. Then $24 billion they will get access to. And Trump also says that there has to be a regional ceasefire, including in Lebanon, and Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity has to be respected. And the MOU also says that the United States and Iran will respect each other's sovereignty and then stay away from issuing threats, etc., etc. Whether Trump is going to respect these commitments is a different matter, but still, if you read the text, this is a text signed by both presidents. And it's astonishing the kind of concessions the United States has given after they claimed that they had won the war. And the Iranians on the other side, their most important pledge, promise, commitment is that they will never make a nuclear bomb, which has been their position since 1979. And they had made even this position on the record in 2015 when they signed the nuclear agreement with the Obama administration. They repeated that position. They are not going to make the bomb. And then, only after the MOU was signed, both sides are going to start negotiations on the nuclear program. They haven't reached an agreement on the nuclear program. They are going to start negotiations on the nuclear program. Just think about such a setback this is for the United States. Obama at least had a deal in 2015. Now, Trump has a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which was opened before his war. And now he has to start talking to the Iranians about the nuclear program. So when it comes to the nuclear program, there are two major hurdles. So one is, what will happen to Iran's enriched uranium? The 60% enriched uranium. The second question is that what will happen to what Iran calls its right to continue to enrich uranium. Which means Iran doesn't want to enrich it up to 60% or 90%. It might want to enrich it up to 3.67%, which is the nuclear power grade. So these are the two sticking points. And after this war, after the assassination of Khamenei, and I will be surprised if the Iranians make any major concessions on these two sticking points in the final agreement. The Iranians are not going to let the enriched uranium being shipped out of the country. They are not going to stop enriching uranium as part of a final agreement. They might be open for scuttling their nuclear program, which is what Obama had achieved. So Trump, at the end of the day, he is going to get a final agreement. He is going to get a JCPOA 2.0. He is not going to get a remarkably different agreement. And that's not the end of the story. This war, before the war, at least Iran faced the threat of an American attack. And that threat, threat can actually be a more powerful tool than the actual war. Always. Before Russia's Ukraine invasion, Russia was seen as a very powerful power, emerging power in Europe. Europeans would not like to threaten Russia. So the actual war, would change the facts on the ground sometimes. The Iranians, on 27th of February 2026, the Iranians had offered massive concessions according to the Omani foreign minister. They were ready for a deal. The Americans didn't take the deal. They went for war. So now, the threat of war is a spent force. From an Iranian perspective, they have seen the worst and they survived it. Why should they now make concessions to the Americans? That's one thing, right? And then, the second thing is that this war is this is a major strategic defeat for the United States. I'll explain why. One, the window for the regime change has been closed, I think, forever. I don't think that the American president, I don't think Trump is going to pursue for a regime change anymore. The Israelis would still dream about it, but they don't have the capacity to do it alone. They want the Americans. But I think that window has been closed. Two, Iran has emerged regionally stronger by taking over the Strait of Hormuz. And they are not going to give up their control over Strait of Hormuz. Mark my words. Because for Iran, Strait of Hormuz is not about collecting tolls or service charges. For them, this is now a matter of deterrence. They know that they control the strait, which means the Americans will think twice before they start the next war. So they want to control the strait. They are not going to give up their control over the strait. The promise they made in the MOU is that they would let the pre-war traffic to resume. They would let ships pass. But ships will have to coordinate with the IRGC. They have already established a new authority, Persian Gulf Strait Authority. A new institution they have created to manage the Strait of Hormuz. They are also in talks with the Omanis. They are not going to give up their control over the strait. So which means they have emerged regionally stronger. Three, the bedrock of the US-Arab Gulf partnership was the security promise of the United States, or rather, the American security umbrella. The Iranians had drilled holes into that security umbrella. It doesn't exist anymore. Nobody came for their rescue. Nobody came for the defense of the UAE or the Saudis or the Qataris during the 40 days of the war. So, which means, at the end of the day, countries will have to, even America's closest allies, will have to look at these developments and recalibrate their approaches. And I'm sure that they might not be able to snap their ties with the Americans, but they will definitely reconsider their relationship with Iran, because for these countries, Iran is now a bigger reality. They will have to coexist with the Iranians, because the Iranians are not going to go anywhere. Four, Israel, which took the war to Iran after October 7. Israel has been fighting many wars since October 7, right? In Lebanon, Syria, and in Gaza, it continues to bomb in Gaza. And Israel is the country that took the war to Iran. In April 2024, Israel bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus. This was the beginning. Israel bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus, and the Iranians responded. Right? And then Israel also killed Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, when he was in Tehran. So, Israel took the war to Iran because Israelis thought that post-October 7, they had the great opportunity to reshape the region militarily. The Israelis wanted to create a unipolar West Asia, with Israel being its center, and the United States being its guardian, and Arab countries signing up for this new order. The Abraham Accords set the stage for this. The Americans brought the UAE and the Israelis together. And the Palestine issue was pushed to the margins of West Asia. One Israeli diplomat recently told me nobody bothers about Gaza. This is how the Israelis look at it. So they wanted to talk about, they don't want to talk about the Palestine issue. They think because of the Iranian threat, the Arabs are coming to them, and Israel wanted to reshape West Asia, as a unipolar region under its power and influence. That opportunity has also passed. So if you look at it from any point of view, this war has turned out to be a strategic disaster for the United States and Israel. But that doesn't mean that everything is fine for the Iranians, no. The country is in deep economic trouble. Their economy is not growing. And at this point of time, the Iranians might not be hitting the streets because nationalism is a very powerful ideology. Their country is being bombed. The American president is threatening to raise their civilization, so they are rallying behind the flag. That doesn't mean that once the dust settles, if the Iranian government is not able to address at least the economic grievances of the people, or if they fail to reform themselves, if the Iranian state needs reform, then there could be problems for them. So Iran has to find a way, one way or the other, to address the economic problems immediately. And for them, that is the incentive the Iranians have to make a deal, eventually to make a deal with the Americans to get the sanctions lifted, and by offering concessions on the nuclear program. So you look at it from the Iranian point of view, or the American point of view, or the Persian Gulf point of view. This war has been a watershed event in West Asia's history, and it is rewriting, when we speak, it is rewriting the regional balance of power. This is something that is comparable to the Suez War of 1956. Before 1956, Britain was a great power in West Asia. And today, even the Brits don't believe that story. They are completely out of West Asia. And the Americans stepped in to the Persian Gulf region after the Suez War. Now, the Persian Gulf region is asking this question to themselves. The Americans came here offering security, and there was no security at all during the war. So they need to find a new modus vivendi with the Iranians. And the Iranians seem determined to keep their control over the Strait of Hormuz and act as a new regional major power. That's how the war has changed the region. Thank you very much.